Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, powered by iReportSource, helping you manage safety one episode at a time. With the constant regulatory and workplace culture challenges businesses face, we'll provide you with all the relevant information necessary to achieve a safer, more productive workplace. No management theories, platitudes, or guru speak, just actionable info you can use right away. Now here's your host, the Safety Pro himself, Blaine Hoffman.
Welcome to another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. I have a guest here, Frank King. How are you doing, Frank?
I am depressed and suicidal. Thanks for asking.
Okay, so before anybody gets any ideas, we'll explain what he means by that. Frank is the mental health comedian. He's a suicide prevention and postvention public speaker and trainer. He turned a lifelong battle with depression into a keynote worth spreading, and that's why he's here on the podcast. We're going to spread his word with all of our listeners. He wrote for the Tonight Show. What is that? 20 plus years?
20 years, yeah.
Wow. So I got to ask, you go from being a stand-up comedian?
34 years.
34 years.
I just did a gig last week.
And writing for the Jay Leno Show and others maybe? But
yeah, Joan Rivers, a little bit for Dennis Miller.
How does
one
this
go?
happen?
Yeah. From stand-up comedian to, I think a comedian's a good choice technically because if you think about it, Blaine, the comedian's job is and always has been since the time of the court jester to speak truth to power on behalf of the powerless. And I believe I speak truth to the power of mental illness on behalf of those powerless, oftentimes in its grip. I believe where there's humor, there's hope. Where there's laughter, there's life. And someday I'm going to write this book, Nobody Dies Laughing.
Yeah.
And depression and suicide run in my family.
Mm-hmm.
It's called generational depression and suicide. My grandmother died by suicide. My mother found her. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I'll spare you the gory details. But my first TED Talk called The Matter of Life or Death, the details are in there. And I myself have come close enough to dying by suicide April 2010 after a bankruptcy, lost everything. I could tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like.
Wow. That's powerful.
Every now and then somebody goes, would you have an official diagnosis from a psychologist or psychiatrist that you're suicidal? And I go, no. They go, what makes you think you're suicidal? The aftertaste of gun oil pretty much drove home the point. I have two mental illnesses. Oh, by the way, on the taste, I know what the barrel of my gun tastes like. Spoiler alert, didn't pull the trigger, okay. Which is in my keynote.
That's good.
And then a friend of mine came up who had never heard me speak before, and he said this after the keynote about the trigger. How come you didn't pull the trigger? I go, how come you sound so not delighted?
Almost disappointed.
Disappointed,
Wow.
Yeah, dude, for God's sakes. I have two mental illnesses. One's called major depressive disorder, better known as depression. And that, people think depression, sadness, the blues. No, true clinical depression happens. It takes like 3 days to 2 weeks to go through it, and it recurs over and over and over.
Cyclical?
Yes.
Okay.
Can be triggered, by the way. I have several triggers. If I disappoint my wife, that triggers it. She knows that now, so she plays with it. I go, honey, are you mad at me? No, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. No,
don't say it.
Yeah, exactly. But that helps. That's part of my safe care plan. She knows. Because up until the time I did my first TED Talk at age 52, nobody knew.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many TED Talks have you done?
I've done 4, and I got a 5th one scheduled. It's a little lighter fare, all on mental illness. This is, honest to God, true title, Blaine, and it's why I got turned down by 12 different committees first. It's called Mental Health and the Orgasm. Treat your depression single-handedly.
Oh, my goodness.
I knew someone somewhere in TEDx Durango, Colorado called me, and they said, that's the best thing we've ever heard.
Wow.
I knew it was going to hit. The others are more serious.
So TED Talks, you help companies. So we're here at the Voluntary Protection Program Participants Association, VPPPA, the National Safety Symposium, and you did a talk here on this.
Yes, did a talk and a breakout.
And in a breakout session. So obviously we're talking about workplace safety. This is a workplace safety podcast.
Yes.
So you're talking about suicide prevention as a workplace safety strategy.
Yes, issue. Because, and by the way, I have one more mental illness, which is a little more rare. It's called chronic suicidality.
Okay.
It means for people like me that have it, suicide's an option as a solution for problems large and small. A couple of years ago, my car broke down. I had 3 thoughts unbidden. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, I could just kill myself. That happens.
Really?
Oh, it's called chronic. Yeah, and
Okay.
when I speak, and I spoke yesterday, people come up afterwards, and oftentimes they don't know they have those same thoughts. Mm-hmm. They don't know it has a name. They think they're just some kind of freak, and they feel all alone. So when they hear me say that out loud, which is one of the reasons I talk about it, the relief is palpable that they're not alone. I said to the group yesterday, I feel like George Bailey in that movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Because I've been shown, perhaps by the angel that kept me from pulling the trigger, I've been shown what these people's lives might be like if I hadn't been there to speak and decode and let them know they were not, in fact, alone, and maybe taking them just far enough off the path of suicide they'd live a normal life. Mm-hmm. So that's the other major mental illness.
Well, that's powerful, though.
Yeah.
Being
God.
able to look at it that way and say, I would be removing my ability to help others and share and empower others.
Yeah, because my second thought was I can't kill myself because I would take all those people with me.
Right.
And then my third thought as a comic was, then they would pursue me through eternity going, you couldn't wait a week?
Right. Yes. So you're just avoiding that,
that's
really.
That's the comic in me, yeah. Well, and the reason we're here at the VPPPA...
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, is because it is, in fact, a workplace health and safety issue. I said yesterday to the group, you don't know this probably, but mental illness and drug addiction cost U.S. businesses more in lost productivity, hard medical costs, absenteeism.
Yes.
And for safety people, this is even more important, it's called presenteeism.
Yes.
It means the guy's working on a pole, but he's not really there mentally.
Correct.
And so he's not only endangering his life, he's endangering everybody's life that's working with him. It costs more for business than heart attack, stroke, cancer, and diabetes combined. But, people tend to focus on the physical side of that equation. What's it costing us in medical, hard medical costs for healthcare? Mm-hmm. So that's why I chose several target markets, dentists, veterinarians, construction. Of the top 10 at-risk occupations, those are the only three that, A, know they have a problem,
really,
and B, are proactive.
Interesting.
Yeah. The number one is construction. Number one occupation at risk for suicide, construction. Then it's excavation, mining, farming, fishing, forestry. Well, farming, and I'm really worried because of the tariffs and the drop by half of
I was going to ask, is it financially, is it because it's so hard in that industry financially for them to grow crops, to bring it to market?
Yeah.
There's so many different regulations that come into play, so many variables.
Well, and farming comes down about half since 2013, with the tariffs and whatever.
Right.
And other things, then you're subject to the weather. And then suicide in the U.S. is male-dominated. 8 out of 10 people who die in the U.S. of suicide are males, generally white, aged 45 to 54. And farming is a very solitary business. You're probably an entrepreneur. You're out there by yourself.
Yeah.
You may be a family farm.
Family, yeah.
And then there's the pressure for the weather, and then the economy. And, and then if you're a family farm, there's a pressure from corporate farm operations. A friend of mine used to raise hogs.
Right.
But it got to the point where he couldn't sell them for what, there's no way to make any money because the corporate farms could sell them for less than it took him to raise them.
Sure.
So
naturally that lends itself to despair, powerlessness, not being hopelessness, not feeling that you have any control over it. These are outside forces bigger than you. What possible hope could you have? Yeah,
and depression generally is a hopelessness, and part of the problem is it's the male being male.
Was it ego, just psyche,
Well, men are taught from childhood to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So think about this. Not just mental health. Men wait longer if they get a lump in their testicle. Wait too long to get a colonoscopy. Have that PSA test on their prostate. My urologist, after I had a prostate biopsy, called my wife, and she goes, I could tell from the phone he was thrilled. And the reason he was thrilled was, my guess, he doesn't get to call the wife of many men and say to them this sentence, it's all benign.
Yeah.
Because I went in right away when they said, look, your prostate is twice the size. It should be, man, you need to get in and get a biopsy.
Right.
I'm in. But men tend to put off, they have chest pains. They're sure it's a burrito, not a heart attack. That's why I've talked to men, because I've had several heart operations. When did you get the symptoms? Okay, how long did you wait to see a doctor? If a woman does not observe the symptoms, then it can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 5 years before the guy goes in to see the doctor.
Sure.
I mean, unless he collapses
Right.
on the golf course, they drag him in because men tend to rationalize. Women tend to, I got a naked pain, I'm going in. So you take the economy, take finances, take the, in construction, it's rough guys, nail driving.
Yeah.
Very
so
much.
as a result, we have folks that wait too long.
Yep.
For one reason or another, they don't get help. They
Won't
don't
reach
talk
out.
They won't reach out, and we have a higher suicide rate among men. In that age group.
We're actually writing a book. It comes out next month. It's called Guts, Grit, and the Grind, a men's mental fitness manual, and it's 42 stories of men. Mm-hmm. First 500 words is things are good.
Yeah.
Second 500 words, midstream, things go to hell in a handbasket. Last 500 words, here's how I'm coping.
Right.
The theory being that a man would pick up the book, thumb through it, find his issue, bankruptcy, drug addiction, whatever, and read it and see how another guy's coping. Plus, there's all kind of resources, and we wrapped it around. It looks like an automobile owner's manual.
Oh, wow.
And all sorts of metaphors. Mm-hmm. Now, don't you wish the man in your life had a check engine light? Mm-hmm. So if it goes off, he goes to the mental mechanic, the guy plugs him into the analyzer and goes, Bob, no wonder you're depressed. You're 2 quarts low on serotonin. Wouldn't it be easy if that was the case?
From me, it's usually the O2 sensor.
Yeah, that's right. Your blood
it's always that O2 sensor.
It is.
Yeah.
Your blood oxygen is way down. So when you combine and with the economy, think about this. People believe that the Chinese are stealing all the jobs. They're going overseas. Well, only 12 to 13% of the jobs that have disappeared in manufacturing have gone overseas. What's taken them is robots and AI. Mm-hmm. So you got a guy who's got a high school education, had a great blue-collar job, union gig, good benefits, a middle-class lifestyle, and all of a sudden a robot's doing his thing. Mm-hmm. He's 50 years old, and men tend to tie their self-worth to their job. In Australia, they came up with a thing called the Shed Project. Mm-hmm. Shed in Australia is a garage. They found out.
So garage project.
Exactly.
Okay.
Whatever it is you do in the garage, whether it's woodworking, ironworking, working on a car, they found out if you put 2 guys under the hood of a car not looking each other in the eye, they can talk about anything.
I see. They're preoccupied with something. It that lets their guard down a little bit.
Yeah, and they don't have to look each other in the eye. You put them in a Starbucks face to face looking each other in the eye.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, the guys are not going to do it.
As a matter of fact, for the rest of this interview, I'm just going to look over there.
That's right. Frank, you're making me nervous. You're oversharing. I don't know you.
No, but you're absolutely right. I can relate to that. That some of the most meaningful conversations I have with my son, who's going to be 14, he's a young man.
Yeah,
is when we are doing something else.
When you're fishing and you're both facing the opposite way in a boat.
Yeah, we're preoccupied with something else.
Yeah.
So if I were to sit him down and look him in the eye and go, "Hey, let's talk," he's going to go, "This is weird. Can we turn the TV on?"
Yeah, this is not going to end well.
So this is a predominantly male problem,
8 out of 10,
but not exclusively.
Note, here's the thing: women attempt more often than men do.
Ah, interesting.
3 times as much.
Really?
Men complete because, can you guess?
Commitment.
Yeah,
I don't.
They generally use a firearm.
Oh, so okay, you're right.
Women cut themselves, pills, other car
attempted
hose,
poisoning, things like that. Things that
men
lend itself to some variables. In
because when I came so close, the gun I have is and I still have it. People go, "You still have guns?" I go, "Look, I'm not an anti-gun nut. I'm a nut, but I'm not anti-gun for God's sakes." Well, we live out where we walk the dogs on Weyerhaeuser logging trails.
Yeah.
And I have seen a cougar in my headlights near the house.
Yeah.
So I carry my little pocket light 380 with HydroShock hollow points because I'm not taking a chance with a cougar. Bear spray? No, she's going to piss him off. So it's just like a condiment at that point.
Right. It's a topping.
Yeah. It's pepper spray.
Yeah.
So when I put the gun in my mouth, I had HydroShock hollow points loaded in that thing. So if I pull the hammer back, pull the trigger,
it's going to get done.
There's no coming back.
So women attempt more often than men.
3 times as many times.
Men
complete
it more often. Yeah. So statistics are they don't tell the full story.
No,
they just tell you some of it. So the transition to the workplace.
Yeah.
Back years ago when I did some work with the Department of Defense, helping U.S. Air Force Research Labs achieve VPP, star status, partner with OSHA. In the military, suicide prevention back then it was a big deal.
Sure,
there was a big effort around wingman culture. Looking out for each other, look for signs, reach out for help on behalf of another. They put a lot of energy into that. What can workplaces do in general industry? I mean, when you talk to companies, what are some of the things? I guess what I'm getting at is like, what did you talk about here? At VPPPA?
Why are you here?
What are we doing? But what can folks take away? Just podcast listeners take away. Like, what things can they do? Aside for where to go to get more information, but like right now, what can they do? How can you help them?
Well, let's talk about what I talked about yesterday.
Okay.
I gave my personal story, my family history, and then I said, okay, now I said to them, so how does this apply to workplace health and safety? Here's the deal. I said, how many people here have been involved in or held a active shooter drill? I mean, nearly every hand went up.
Oh, yeah.
I go, okay, here's the problem. It's a good idea. You should hire somebody to do that. You should not do it. You should do that. But here's the thing from a mental health perspective. In mental health, we would call that downstream, way downstream. Because if you're doing a active shooter drill, what you're really trying to do is, as they say in the insurance business, mitigate damages.
Right.
You're just trying to keep the body count down. The horse has left the barn. The guy with the gun is there, and you're just trying to, I said, why not? We're in the safety business. Why not go way upstream? And this is slightly self-serving because this is what I do. But I said to him, why not bring somebody like me, go to the Safety Institute here and hire somebody, me or somebody like me, to come in and teach what they call gatekeeper training.
Okay.
It's a system called QPR, the QPR Institute, which is question, persuade, refer. I said, you do the gatekeeper, like the wingman. Wingman, gatekeeper are basically the same thing. You teach your staff, HR, managers, whatever, maybe some of the rank and file, how to spot signs and symptoms of depression, how to spot signs and symptoms of thoughts of suicide, what to do, more importantly, what not to do, what to say, more importantly, what not to say, so that they know if they, it's like see something, say something, they know the next step. They know how to talk to the person, and talk to HR and go, look, I think Bob, I caught him sitting in the car. He's all by himself. He's got a gun in his lap. It's not always that obvious, but so that
that's an extreme example, but usually more subtle than that.
Yeah, well, but 90% of people who attempt suicide, 90% during the week prior, they give hints, direct or indirect.
Wow. So they either talked about doing it.
90%.
Okay.
Now, they may be direct hints like I'm going to kill myself, or indirect hints like, I'm so tired, I just can't take it anymore. Tired's a big thing with people with mental illness. I'm just so tired. And
they don't mean physical. When they say, I'm just tired, they mean
tired of pasting on a smile, walking through the world, not letting anybody know.
Not physically, I didn't get enough sleep last night. They're right.
No, they're just emotionally worn out.
So language is important.
Important, yeah.
So,
and that's something we teach. Here's a list.
So what to look for?
Here's an indirect clue. Here's direct clues. Here's behavioral, and I'll talk about that in a second, behavioral clues. So I said, why not bring somebody like me in to teach? Bring me to the regional conference. Bring me, if you're a big company, to your teams. Or if you have an industry association, bring me in to teach those people. So that you got all these people who are, it's like CPR. I want 1 out of 4 people trained in QPR, so they can recognize there's an issue, then they know exactly what to do. Not to cure them, but like an EMT, just get them safe and stable, and then
until help arrives.
Yes. Whether it's a 3-day involuntary hold in a mental health facility where they take away your shoestrings and your belt, or it's just getting them to a therapist and hopefully on medication.
Right.
So that's upstream, and then midstream, I said, and the Safety Institute here has a guy, Gary Sheely, who teaches conflict resolution. So why not bring in somebody to your regional conference, to your whatever, to your teams, and teach them conflict resolution? So if in fact they spot somebody who they think is depressed and having thoughts of suicide, and you question them, you ask them about it, and it turns out it's a beef with an employee or employees, a manager or managers, then you go into conflict resolution so that you never have to put those skills you learned in the active shooter drill. It's like we're talking about when you were a firefighter.
Right.
If you move the gas cans and the rags out of the closet in the garage, and put them outside, then chances are you're never going to need to call the fire department. Yep. If you can spot depression, thoughts, suicide, if you can resolve if it's a conflict with somebody, and it could be a conflict at home.
Right.
But whatever conflict, if you can resolve that conflict, then you never get to the point where you're doing the active shooter drill because, as I said, now you're just trying to keep the body count down. Absolutely. An ounce of prevention, right? Exactly. And, I said we're in the safety business. Our whole thing is, not mitigating damages. It's prevention. Hello. Yeah. So it's a great concept. And you know what? As you were talking, I immediately, my mind went to
reasonable suspicion. We do that training, drugs and alcohol. Like, here's how to spot somebody who may be inebriated or incapacitated or mind altered, right, at work, because we know that's dangerous
for them and for their coworkers.
We could do why not add the mental? You're absolutely right. We should be thinking about suicide prevention in terms of a major part of our safety program.
Yeah, because I've talked to people. I did the general session, and people came up to me one after another. Frank, we've got 500 employees. We lost 2 to suicide last year.
Oh my goodness.
We have 3,900 employees. We lost 21 to suicide last year. So it's sort of the elephant in the room that nobody's.
Yeah. We still need to have that conversation in this. I don't know about other countries, but in this country, about mental health. I don't know why we still haven't gotten there.
And I have to be very careful on that score because mental health is a very easy sort of scapegoat when somebody does a mass.
So a broad label.
Yeah, and we should do something about mental health. Very vague.
Right.
And statistically, only 5% of gun deaths involve a person diagnosed mentally ill. Now,
diagnosed, okay.
Could be undiagnosed.
Right.
And of those 5%, most of those have one victim themselves.
Themselves, yeah.
Of mass shootings, only 2% somebody diagnosed, granted, diagnosed as mentally ill. Now, there is the thought that if you're shooting up a place and killing people,
how sane can you possibly be? Well, yeah, at least in that moment.
Yeah, and but it could be not. It could be what do you call it? Your philosophy. If you're radicalized in some form or fashion,
right? Ideology.
Yep. It could be that you have anger issues and poor impulse control.
Right.
And that's the way you solve the problem. So now you could argue that anger issues and impulse control are a mental health issue.
I see what you're saying. So not in the sense of the term that's commonly used when people say mental health, right? They mean mental disease or disorder,
right?
But bringing that back to the workplace, that's interesting. Somebody who has poor impulse control, they lack the skills for practical problem solving.
Yep.
That leads to a lot of conflicts at work that normally would not be that blown out of proportion or big of a deal. That could explain why. So we're right back to where you started, which is we still need these skills. We still need to develop.
Somebody's just really angry and they've got poor impulse control. Let's find out why, who, and if there's a conflict, let's resolve the conflict before it, bubbles up and ends up we're trying to keep the body count down.
And don't put them in customer service.
No, and that's funny.
You're making me up my game here. You're right, though, that sort of, matching a personality to the job is a whole other industry with personality tests and all that good stuff. Whether you subscribe to that or not, I don't know. But, we need to be better in the workplace at, one, recognizing, and two, dealing with these issues.
Well, and think about this, Blaine. Look around the hall. I looked out at the audience yesterday, and I would say about 90% men.
Yeah.
The industries that are here are dominated. They had a woman on stage yesterday who was speaking after I did.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how it's called the only is lonely. If you're the only woman on the board, if you're the only woman on the panel, and so it's male dominated. And again, that puts us right back to 8 out of 10.
So the statistics bear that out.
Yeah.
Right?
So if there's one place I should be talking about this, it's at
right
here. At
Absolutely.
a conference like this where it's predominantly male. There's some huge construction companies here.
Yes. Huge oil and gas.
Yep.
Manufacturing, pharma is here. We have a good cross section. So
and male dominated.
Right. So in your talk, what were some of the actionable tips that they were able to walk away with? What can our listeners walk away with?
And that's what I like to do. And by the way, I did radio back in the day. I did a talk show. And when I had somebody on, I said, okay, here's the deal. We'll have you on. We'll pimp your little book. But you know what? We need something. I need something for my listeners.
Absolutely.
I hung up on a guy one time, Kevin, somebody had a memory course. And I go, well, give us top 3 things that people would do as they're driving to work that improve their memory by the time they get to the job. No. I'm sorry?
Well, which would explain why you don't remember his last name.
Yeah.
You never got there.
Yeah, exactly. If you give me the 3 tips, I'd know who he was.
All right.
So I went 2 rounds with him, Blaine, and then I said, fine, click, hung up on him. Because my listeners, we're not just,
I'm the same way. We don't deal in management theory at the end of the episode. I've got to give them some actionable advice.
Yeah.
So that's why I enjoyed talking to you before we started. So
that's what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, basically it's a 10-minute advertisement for me. I mean, to be in front of the many people in the VPPPA
right.
was amazing.
Yeah.
And I could have just done 10 minutes of me.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 3 minutes I said, okay, here's your first lesson, gatekeeper training.
What is that?
Okay. So how do you spot somebody who is depressed? Okay. And I said, it's not an exhaustive list, but let me give you some of the top three. Has trouble getting up in the morning, rallies in the afternoon. Begins to let their personal hygiene go. Eats too much, can't eat. Sleeps too much, can't sleep.
So can't eats too much. Can't. What, the sugar need a boost? What?
Yeah. Food as a comfort.
Okay.
Or their stomach is so in knots they cannot eat.
Okay.
Sleep as a lot of people who are depressed, myself included. You know, the bed is very attractive. You know, crawl in bed, Netflix. Yeah, there's another mind killer.
Long periods of time of solitude, being in bed.
And bed's
right.
very safe place.
Okay.
There's an old rock and roll song where the lyric is, sleep's the only freedom that she knows. I believe whoever wrote that probably had a depression. So then either you sleep too much or because you're so anxious, you can't sleep.
Okay.
So, and then people say, well, what do you say? Well, let's start with what you don't say. And this is, again, in a very male-dominated world. You don't say pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Because I've said, yeah, that's really difficult to do when you're hanging from your belt. You don't say turn that frown upside down.
Right.
You don't say have you tried fish oil? Because I get that. You know, my uncle went on salmon fish oil, and he gave all his medications. And I said, well,
so giving advice.
Yeah, they call
have
it.
You tried this?
Yeah, they call it in the mental health business. Don't should.
Right.
All over them. Don't. You should do this and you should do that.
Right. Right.
So that's what you don't do. Now here's what if you believe they're depressed or they admit they're depressed, you say this. Okay, here's the deal. Like wingman, I'm here for you, and you got to mean it. I know you're not crazy, lazy, or self-absorbed. From the training I've had, I realize that depression isn't illness. However, the good news is, with time and treatment, things will get better. And I will take the time and mean it, help you get the treatment and mean it.
Right.
Okay, now here's the tough one, Blaine. If they're depressed, you got to ask this question. Are you having thoughts of suicide?
So you should ask.
Flat out. And
really?
I have difficulty. I have to practice at home before I go ask somebody that because it's a hard question. And say it that way. Are you having thoughts of suicide? There's no wives' tale or urban legend that you should never mention the S word, suicide, in front of somebody who's depressed. And as a comedian, I love the reasoning because it might give them the idea. Suicide? What a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah, that's what some people believe. I got booked at a school in Texas to go down there because I do colleges as well because 3 college students a day die by suicide.
3 a day?
3 a day. Well, you know, 47,000 people in the U.S. die every year.
Yeah.
That's 1 every 10 minutes. That means by the time you and I get finished, somebody someplace.
We've already lost somebody.
Yeah, 5 an hour.
Wow.
So the college called me back and they go, look, Frank, we can't bring you down here. I said, what do you mean? Up to the point of signing contracts. Well, one of the staff said that if you come down here and you mention suicide and one of the students dies by suicide, then the parents are going to come back and sue us because you guys brought it up.
Really?
Yeah, I go, well, the guy who wanted to book me said, Frank, look, if I'd been closer to retirement, what I would have said to that staff member was, we need to change the school mascot from whatever it was to an ostrich because we've got our heads in the sand. Yeah, he goes, if I was closer to retirement, and the sad thing is, somebody's going to die by suicide on that campus. And it won't be because somebody mentioned it. It's just the reverse is true. You have got to talk about it. So that's what you... and how do you spot? Let's say they tell you they're depressed, but they don't admit they're suicidal.
Okay, so you've asked the question: have you had thoughts of suicide? And they say no.
But here's how you spot it if they do.
Okay,
say no. If they talk about death and dying, Google death and dying. If it appears as a theme in any artwork or writing that they do, if they are obviously gathering the means, whether it's buying ammunition and a weapon or stockpiling medication.
So you've got the obvious stuff down to more subtle things, like the medication piece would be
here's another one
people
that's
miss.
Subtle that people don't. And I talked to a guy yesterday after my breakout.
Yeah,
and he had been doing this because he was rolling up to a suicide because one of his supervisors called him in his office and said to him, "You've got to get your SHIT together."
Yeah,
and so he made a plan. He knew where there were guns.
He got his stuff together.
Yeah, he knew there were guns in a couple of cars in the parking lot. He was going to walk around maybe twice and then get in the car and do it. And because of a beef with a supervisor. So, if we could have spotted this.
So you be careful when you tell people to get your stuff together. They may just do that.
Yeah, he was going to do it. Yeah,
just define that a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, it's exactly that was not particularly motivational.
Correct. Wow.
Now, fortunately, a friend at work who was paying attention, he passed the guy on the way out to the car to kill himself, and his friend said to him, "You okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, because we're great actors.
Right.
The reason I have a Screen Actors Guild card because I'm an amazing actor. People go, 'Can you act?' I acted like I was happily married to my first wife for 5 years. What do you think?" And he circled the parking lot, and he circled it again, and for some reason he went back inside, and his friend, who he'd seen before, he heard him down the hall going, "Hey, where is," and the guy's name. "I think there's something wrong." So this guy comes around the corner, sees his friend goes, with a finger, come with me, goes into his office, closes the door, sits him down, and he goes, "Okay, man, something is wrong. I mean, really wrong. Are you struggling with," and the kid breaks down, crying, I haven't thought suicide, I had a plan. So
wow.
They call the police, because if you say that out loud, you have to call the police. Fortunately, small town, everybody knew him, took him to a mental health facility where he spent 3 or 4 days, then 6 weeks of outpatient. But at my breakout yesterday, when I got done, I go over and the guy's, he's teared up. Because he's having kind of flashbacks, because we're talking about a very difficult thing, some of which he'd gone through. Although he said to me, "Look, I love the fact that you're trying to destigmatize all this, the fact that you're so upfront about the fact that you came so close, because it makes my life easier if people understand." So let's see, another sign. Giving away prized possessions. That's what he was doing. He was
really?
Because you want to make sure they go to the people you want them to go to when you're gone. And
so this is like the final state. Like this is right before I'm planning on doing whatever it is I'm going to do. I'm kind of getting my affairs in order.
Top of the pyramid of giving away things, giving away a pet.
Really? Oh, yeah, because you want that's a living thing, so you want somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you hear something like this, because this is an actual case where the guy goes, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be gone for the weekend camping. Would you mind looking after the dog? I know you got dogs. Great. Listen, if I didn't come back on Monday, it was later than that, would you? I mean, you'd take care of them, right?"
Yeah, that's an odd question.
Bingo. Yeah, he wants to make sure the dogs are well taken care of.
Right.
Okay, now that's where you give away. Okay, now here's the
giving away possessions, especially a pet.
Here's the top of the pyramid again. They're depressed for over and over for a long time, and then one day they're just happy, not a care in the world,
like a switch.
Yes, and that's very dangerous because they may have decided time, place, method, and they know the pain is finite. That's what a lot of people don't understand about most suicides. It's not about, when Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade died by suicide, I got texts and Facebook messages and phone calls. Apparently all my friends got together and decided, because I'm suicidal, I'm now the spokesman for people who are suicidal, and I would know. Why did Kate Spade or Anthony Bourdain, who had everything to live for, why did they kill themselves? Why did they want to kill themselves? And I said to them, chances are they didn't want to kill themselves. I didn't want to kill myself. I just wanted to end that pain. And that's the thing about drug addiction and alcohol addiction. It's all about ending the pain, even if for a brief period of time.
Whatever that is, right? So if they're all of a sudden like a switch, because they have a solution, and it's almost comforting at that point.
Yeah, because what a lot of people don't understand about mental illness is, I don't know if you know the Greek character Sisyphus, who had to roll a rock up a hill every day as punishment, and when he got near the top, it rolled back down to the bottom. So that's kind of what having a mental illness is like. Every morning you get out of bed, there's a rock and a hill. Some days the rock is small and the hill's not so steep. Some days the rock is a boulder. Hill's Kilimanjaro. My guess is Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, and I woke up one morning and we just couldn't move the rock.
Wow.
And my job is to train people to take care of people so that every morning they wake up, they can still move the rock.
Good point. So we've talked about some things you can look for that are tangible, some a little more subtle.
Yep.
What else?
And so the question comes, all right, let's say either they tell you they're suicidal or you believe they are. What next? What's the next question?
Okay.
Well, you ask them, do you have a plan? Remember when I came in this morning and you go,
these are all things people would probably go, there's no way I can ask somebody that.
Yeah, it takes practice.
Yeah.
And in my training, I say, if you can't ask these questions, you find somebody who can, like HR. They're paid to do this kind of stuff. ask them if they have a plan. If they have a plan, then you ask them, what is your plan? If they're depressed and suicidal, have a plan, and it's detailed. Like the guy I talked about who, gun, cars, walked around,
right.
He gave away possessions. That is extremely dangerous. Your job at that point is to get people on the
National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Yeah, it's
I like it as a lifeline. It's not a hotline.
No, they changed that. It's 1-800 what?
273-8255.
Yep. And now for kids, for younger people, kids. I'm showing my age. There's a text line. You text the word help to 741-741.
Really?
Well,
Okay.
because younger people are more forthcoming in text.
Right. That's how they communicate.
They're more likely to tell you what's really going on.
Okay.
Okay, that's your job. Now, if they won't pick up the phone, you pick up the phone. You dial 1-800-273-8455, and the volunteer will do their best to talk the phone into the hand of the person.
I was going to ask, can somebody else call or text to get advice, tips on how to handle,
Absolutely.
how to approach? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just for the person struggling. It could be for somebody saying, I know somebody who's struggling. Help me help them.
Yeah, help me help them. What's my next step?
Perfect. Okay.
And
I'll put a link. I'll make sure that's in the show notes, that phone number and some other resources.
And the
well.
741-741.
Absolutely.
Because there's some younger folks here.
Sure.
Then if the question always comes up, when do you dial 911? If they're an immediate danger to themselves or others, you have no choice. Now, they're going to be upset because there's chances are, depending on what state you're in, there'll be a 3-day involuntary hold.
There's some laws in different areas.
Which, there's mixed feelings about that among the mental health community. Some believe, it's you decompress, you can get sleep a lot, somebody else is taking care of the meals, and you don't have to worry. Others, you're taking away personal freedom, so it's
there's still a stigma around.
Yeah.
If I do this...
Yeah, and that's one reason people...
It turns out to be nothing. I'm going to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And that,
or I'm going to be tagged with,
there's
a crazy guy who...
right.
Whatever.
Right.
Again, we're trying to change that mentality. Now, let's say they're depressed and suicidal, they got a plan, but it's not particularly specific. And my next TED Talk is going to be, I'm going to mention this. The fourth question should be, well, are you going to kill yourself? Because in my case, because I have chronic suicidality, if somebody said, are you depressed? Yes. Do you have a plan? Well, I got 6, 7, 8 plans. Which one do you hear? Are you going to kill yourself? No, because it's just something I live with. The last question, most important, end on a positive note. Well, if you're not going to kill yourself, tell me why not.
Really?
Yeah. And I've already told you why not.
Right.
Because I'm George Bailey, and if I did, I'd take all these people with me. So I have a reason why I'm not, a solid reason. Some people say my grandkids, my pets, my family, I would ever do it to them. And a lot of people who are depressed and suicidal, they won't do it actively, but you hear them say more than once, I wish I could just go to bed tonight and not wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Because because there's not a lot of stigma. Matter of fact, I had a heart attack. I was walking the dogs in those woods I talked about. I was half a mile from the car. I had a heart attack because I've had heart issues. And I had T-Mobile, so I didn't have cell service. And that always gets a laugh, by the way.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And it occurred to me later that because people think if you're depressed and suicidal, it's 24/7, 365.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case.
Not the case. Okay.
I have a self-care plan, exercise, diet, meditation, and medication.
Okay.
So I have good days. I have bad days. But fortunately, that day I was in a good place. But, if I'd wanted to die, if I'd been suicidal that day, I could have sat down on the trail with the dogs and let the heart attack run its course, and only the dogs would know that I chose to die. They would find me and go, oh, man.
Had a heart attack.
Yeah, and he's got T-Mobile. No wonder. Yeah. But I was in a good place, so I walked a half mile, drove 2 miles home. Get this. I went inside. I wasn't going to pick up the phone because I was afraid I'd pass out before I could talk to the 911 operator.
Right.
So I yelled to my wife, honey, I'm having a heart attack. Dial 911. I hear this. I'm in the bathroom. I got the fan on. I can't hear you.
Oh, wow.
Well, fortunately, Blaine, we're 25 minutes from town, but we have 3 EMTs that live and a retired fire chief or whatever.
Yeah.
So when she called 911, all their phones went off. They came down. There were 90 seconds there, all their personal cars in my driveway.
There you go.
So I got transported, and they gave me the IV and the nitro, but yeah, if I'd wanted to die a socially acceptable death, then and then the insurance company wouldn't question. They just pay the.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't pull the trigger, by the way.
Wow.
Because there's a suicide clause in my $1 million life insurance.
Life insurance policy, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like, as most people do in that position, I was a burden to my wife. burdensomeness is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
She would be brokenhearted, but she would have $1 million. She could keep the farm. Problem was, you have to have the policy 24 months.
Right.
Called my insurance agent and said, how long have I had the policy? And it dawned on him what I was asking. I wasn't asking how long I had the policy. I was asking, could I kill myself?
Yeah, how long do you have? Right.
Yeah, and he goes, 22 months, and don't do it. Don't. I don't want to deliver the check. And he said to me later, as he realized what I was asking, he had no idea what to say.
Yeah.
So he very quickly prayed, please let it be the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. He said, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I left them with yesterday. Don't worry about saying the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just say something. Yeah.
That what a great message to, not that we're going to wrap up, but that's what I'm getting out of this is we can't make everybody therapists.
No.
But let's arm average everyday people, friends, coworkers, family members with something.
You know what it's like? It's like an EMT. Mental health first aid.
Yeah.
Arm them or give them mental health first aid tools. They can put in a mental health first aid toolbox so that if something happens, they can put together a mental health first aid action plan and just get that person to professional help, like an EMT would.
Until help arrives.
Yeah, the guys came to help me with my heart attack. They didn't do an ablation. They didn't give me a couple of stents while I'm lying in bed.
Right.
They just stabilized me.
Correct.
Made sure I was transportable. Off to the hospital we went, turned me over to professionals. That's what the training is really about.
Yeah. You know what, as we're talking, even OSHA, we're talking in the context of the VPPPA National Safety Symposium here in New Orleans. You probably hear all kinds of crazy stuff in the background. There's construction going on.
Yeah,
There's people walking by talking. It's awesome. But I'm thinking, OSHA has some requirements for first aid CPR training for certain industries. Some states have requirements, and you have to follow either the American Heart Association or Red Cross. When will we have this as one of the core pieces of curriculum?
I was talking to a guy yesterday, and OSHA's just passed a rule, I think. If the ladder's over 24 feet tall, you have to have some kind of harness
and ladder climbing
cord
device.
or something. Or unless there's a
bungee cord. I like that one.
Harness, because that's going to be a hard stop.
Yeah.
But if you put a bungee cord on, you're just going to go,
Well, they do have deceleration devices.
They do?
But yes. That's the safety nerd in me, and I will not bring that out again for the rest of the conversation.
Well, if there's a platform between, let's say it's 30 feet high.
Yeah.
There's a platform at 15 feet. Well, that's okay if the platform's large enough to stop the fall and they won't roll off.
Correct.
I'm listening to this, and I'm going, and we don't do any kind of suicide prevention.
Correct. We don't prevent employees from falling in that way.
Yeah, and suicide
Absolutely.
is the most preventable cause of death known to man.
Wow.
And you don't have to be a professional. Anybody can stop a suicide because 8 out of 10 people want somebody to go, hey, are you? Yeah, we need to have a serious talk.
Yeah. I do. I think after talking to you, I'm convinced, and I mean this all since, with every bit of sincerity that I can muster, that I think that we in the safety industry in this community, whether it's VPPPA, ASSP, National Safety Council, we should be driving for national standards for curriculum when we do first aid CPR training.
Yeah.
That we have this topic with skills training, not awareness. Skill, actual practical skills training,
like chest compressions with CPR.
Absolutely.
Or every building. I'm sure they got them all over the place. They have the AEDs,
defibrillators. AEDs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
we should be doing that. We should be petitioning. We should be pushing for that. So,
because 47,000 people a year, Blaine.
Yeah,
that's 737 going into the ground like a lawn dart every other day. Where's the big push?
Right.
And by the way, 47,000 does not count the 65 to 70,000 opioid deaths.
Indirect, right?
And we don't know how much of that was an overdose, accidental, or on purpose.
Or they're using that as a way
self-medicate.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm with you, brother. Frank King, the mental health comedian. Where can folks go to find more information about you?
You type in The Mental Health Comedian. On even just that without the www. The Mental Health Comedian, you'll find my website, Facebook, Instagram, all the. So
I have your card here. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Being a comedian, it is a business card. It's shaped like a playing card. On one side is the Joker, and it has your information because you're a comedian. And oddly enough, on the other side is a Suicide King.
King. Yeah, and my name is King, and it's suicide. And by the way, with my heart problems, it just happened to be the King of Hearts. So,
oh, wow. See, even deeper. You're going meta on me here. So, King of Hearts, Suicide King, Frank King, the mental health comedian. Frank, I appreciate it. What last words of wisdom do you want to leave our listeners?
People often wonder, is there anything funny? Is there anything funny about depression and suicide? No, there's nothing funny about it. But there are humorous, as we have demonstrated. There is humor in the topic. And often get hired because I can add a little humor to release the tension, because it's a very difficult topic. Yesterday I went on stage and I quoted 47,000 people. I put up a countdown clock on the screen. That was my only slide. And I had them start it when I hit the stage, and it started at 10 minutes. And I pointed to it and said, that means someplace in this country somebody has less than 10 minutes to live. So very serious. And then I said, I'm going to answer the question that's in everybody's mind in this building. I held up that giant-sized container of Morton salt that they put in everybody's swag bag. And I go, what's with the Morton salt in the swag bag? Place exploded laughter because the tension, I'd built the tension, and then we released it.
You totally took it in another direction
exactly.
there.
That's why comedy.
Got people relaxed. Yeah. And when they're relaxed, they're a little more open to talking about or learning about this.
Yeah, because as I got to, every 10 minutes, I'm sure the pucker factor went sky high in the room. And then when I held up the Morton salt that everybody got and was wondering, why did they give me a full container of Morton salt? The laughter just boom.
Right. So for people listening and don't understand what he's talking about, we get swag bags when we come to the conference, and sponsors of the VPPPA National Safety Symposium, they contribute, things, whether it's the bag, whether it's some items. Morton Salt, a VPP participant, they partnered with OSHA. They gave us some free kosher salt.
Full size,
container, not thousands of these bottles. So they showed up with some serious product.
Well, and you know what I said up from the stage? I go, I don't know whose idea it was at Morton to put a full size, but I'll tell you what, they should get a raise and a promotion, because everybody at this conference I bumped into was talking about that salt.
Talking about the salt. I snapped a photo of that salt.
See, I'm telling you, it's brilliant. I don't know who it was,
brilliant.
But whoever it is.
It's Morton. That's how they are. I've met them at other conferences, other Region 5 conference couple years back, and they're a great team, and that's just how they think.
What could you put in a swag bag like that? Every time I walked around the hall, all the guys are pulling them out. What's it? I thought, man, it went viral here in the building.
Oh yeah, it was definitely the item in the bag that people talk about at this year's conference. So.
Yep, brilliant.
So Frank, it's an absolute pleasure.
Blaine?
Keep up the good work. I believe in what you're doing, brother, and I, for one, as a safety professional, going forward, I'm going to make sure that this is a topic that is added to, every organization that I interact with. I make sure that they add this topic to, their safety programs.
Well, and you asked in the beginning, why VPPA? Because what I saw was a vacuum. That nobody was talking about it. That's one of the reasons why I went into the suicide prevention speaking business, because if you mention it to somebody, they just spill their guts, and they tell you things that you would never tell somebody because they're just waiting for somebody to mention depression and suicide.
Right.
I looked at VPPA and I thought, man, why? It's a safety organization. Why? So there's the vacuum. So I'm here to fill the vacuum.
Absolutely. You're in the right spot. We desperately need this topic in the workplace, and keep up the good work. We will have links to your website, and also TED Talks. I'll look for your TED Talks, and I'll put links to the TED Talks as well if they're still out there.
For the folks who brought me, they're an exhibitor, Safety Institute.
Okay,
.com. If they want to book me, that's where they would go, to the Safety Institute, because they were kind enough to bring me.
So, you hear that? Anybody listening, if you would like to explore this topic some more and talk to Frank about either having him come out and speak or present to your organization, or if you have another event scheduled, check the links in the show notes, and I'll make sure that there's an opportunity for you to get a hold of Frank. Thanks again, Frank. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Safety Pro Podcast, powered by iReportSource, the all-in-one digital safety solution. For info on how you can request a free demo on all the capabilities of iReportSource to streamline your business's safety management system, head over to thesafetypropodcast.com. We look forward to helping you manage safety on the next episode of the Safety Pro Podcast.